afternoon on this Thursday, March 20th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. Prime Minister Tamam Salam is said to be winning a parliamentary vote of confidence as lawmakers discuss the last day of the policy statement of the cabinet. Clashes intensify between Syrian regime troops and gunmen along the Lebanese-Syrian border, with shelling and gunfire in the Akkad border area of Wadi Khalid. And Russia faces further sanctions from the European Union over its annexation of the Crimean Peninsula, and tensions remain high. Prime Minister Tamam Salam is said to be winning a parliamentary vote of confidence as lawmakers discuss the second and last day the policy statement of his cabinet. It is expected that Salam will win 110 votes out of the 128-member parliament. The Future Bloc lawmaker Khalid Daher called on the state to spread its authority on all Lebanese territories, and he accused the army of being lenient with gunmen in certain areas while taking other measures and stronger measures against their rivals in other regions. MP Ahmed Fatfat criticized former Prime Minister Najib Mikati without naming him by saying that he is the first to be held responsible for the deterioration of security, economic and political situations in the country. The Kitab MP Sami Jmail stated that those who claimed they were fighting in Syria to prevent Takfiris from coming to Lebanon have now allowed them to infiltrate into Lebanese territories after the fall of the Syrian town of Yabrud. Clashes intensify between the Syrian regime troops and gunmen along the Lebanese-Syrian border, with shelling and gunfire targeting Khat al-Petrol village in the Akkar border area of Wadi Khalid. Heavy gunfire and shelling from the Syrian side of the border targeted the northern town as battles flared up along the border. Casualties were reported and at least 35 Syrians wounded in the clashes were admitted to a hospital in the nearby town of Al-Kubayat. This comes a day after Syrian troops recaptured the town of Al-Husn close to the border. The residents of Wadi Khalid have called on the Lebanese army to interfere in order to stop the shelling on the area. And the international highway in the Badawi area was shortly blocked to protest the incident as well. Also, 2 houses burned down in the village of Bani Sakhir in Wadi Khalid after coming under Syrian shelling. Interior Minister Nuhad Mashnu urged residents of the areas to reopen the roads to facilitate the transportation of the injured. Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jaja says he will do everything within his power to ensure the next president of Lebanon is a March 14 candidate. Jaja refused to confirm whether he would run for president this spring, saying that's not what really matters. What matters is that the March 14 coalition, which is struggling in the greater national battle, cannot stand aside in the battle for the presidency. The constitutional period to elect a new head of state begins on March 25th, 2 months prior to the expiration of President Michel Sleiman's mandate. For his part, Maronite Patriarch Bashar al-Ai also demanded that the presidential election be held on time. At least 11 rebels were killed and at least 30 wounded in a Syrian army ambush, an ensuing gun battle in Al-Husn near the Lebanese border region of Wadi Khalid. Pro-Syrian army are said to have ambushed militants from the Nusra Front, the Sunni jihadist group, while trying to flee a siege imposed on Al-Husn in the central province of Homs. Syrian regime forces chased the fleeing militants across Rajm Hussein, a small hamlet on the outskirts of Wadi Khalid, engaging them in fierce fighting. Meanwhile, bombing and heavy machine gun fire reverberated across the border as Syrian warplanes were seen circling the northern border. Several homes were hit by Syrian shelling, but there were no immediate reports of casualties among civilians. The Syrian army closed the Buqai'a border, crossing in both directions in an apparent effort to tighten security on the rebels and block the entry of wounded refugees to Lebanon. Also in the news, Russia is facing further sanctions from the European Union over its annexation of the Crimean Peninsula as tensions in the region remain high despite the release of a Ukrainian naval commander. In an address to the German parliament in Berlin, Chancellor Angela Merkel said the EU was readying further sanctions and that the G8 forum of leading U.S. President Barack Obama says the United States will not take military action against Russia over its actions in Ukraine. The president said his administration will, however, ratchet up the pressure on Russia, taking additional measures to the sanctions already announced. In an exclusive interview with NBC7 San Diego, Obama said the U.S. would not get involved in what he called a military excursion in Ukraine.
we are not going to be getting into a military excursion in Ukraine. What we are going to do is mobilize all of our diplomatic resources to make sure that we've got a strong international coalition that sends a clear message, which is the Ukraine should decide their own destiny. Russia right now is violating international law and the sovereignty of another country. Might doesn't make right, and we are going to continue to ratchet up the pressure on Russia as it continues down its current course. Mr. Putin decided that he didn't want Ukrainians to make their own decisions about their own future. But the truth of the matter is that the issue of Ukraine is so close to Russia's core security. They actually have seen more and more countries say, we don't want to be under the thumb of Russian decision making. We want to make our own decisions about who we're dealing with. We want to deal with Russia and the West and America and other parts of the world. And I guess he's not comfortable with that, but his strategic decisions are in no way based on whether he thought that we might go to war over this. I think there's a clear understanding that when it comes to our core interests or our NATO allies, we can protect ourselves.
Coming up next, 2 objects possibly related to the search for a missing Malaysia Airlines flight have been sighted in the southern Indian Ocean. Find out more after the break. Welcome back. 2 objects possibly related to the search for the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 have been sighted by satellite in the remote southern Indian Ocean, according to Australian officials who say that they are calling it so far their best lead they have. Prime Minister Tony Abbott said the new incredible information had come to light nearly 2 weeks after the plane vanished en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing with 239 passengers and crew on board. An Australian Air Force Orion was due over the area some 2,500 kilometers southwest of the western city of Perth, imminently, with 3 more long-range surveillance planes, including from the United States and New Zealand, to follow. A merchant ship was expected to arrive in the vicinity with Australian naval vessel HMAS Success, which is capable of retrieving the objects some days away. The Libyan government is calling on the United Nations and international community to help fight what it called a war on terrorism as it struggles to stop the country from sliding into a widening chaos and instability. The appeal comes after a wave of bombings and assassinations in the eastern city of Benghazi and clashes between pro-government forces, as well as a rebel militia controlling major oil ports in Sirte in central Libya. The violence is part of turmoil in the North African country, where the government is unable to control militias that helped overthrow Muammar Gaddafi back in 2011, but kept their weapons to grab oil wealth and power. Terrorist groups had declared war on Benghazi, Sirte, and other cities, according to the government. A powerful car bomb targeting an army academy killed at least 8 in Benghazi just on Monday. And a court in India has found 4 men guilty of gang raping 2 women, including a photojournalist in the city of Mumbai. The photojournalist was gang raped in the city's abandoned Shakti Mills compound in August while on an assignment, following which several men were arrested by the police. Days after the incident, another woman revealed that 3 of those men had also raped her in July. According to NDTV, the 4 men convicted by a Mumbai court on Thursday were Vijay Jadhav, Kasim Bengali, Salim Ansari, and Siraj Rahman. Another accused the minor is being tried in a juvenile court. The men, all unemployed, lived in a slum near the mill. The assault on the photojournalist shocked the nation, already reeling from the brutal gang rape of a medical student in the capital of New Delhi. The rape triggered street protests across the nation and forced the federal government to push through stringent laws against such crimes. In an effort to help Americans prepare for the effects of global warming, the White House unveiled a new initiative to make climate data widely available to citizens, companies, and local governments. The move is part of President Barack Obama's Climate Action Plan, a broad strategy to meet U.S. commitments to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide that are blamed for heating the Earth. Part of tackling climate change involves adapting to it, and the administration launched a website, climate.data.gov, to help people do that by gaining access to collated data from different government agencies. The administration is also releasing mapping information about critical infrastructure such as bridges, tunnels, and roads to help prepare for natural disasters and climate change-related problems. Obama has made fighting climate change a focus this year for executive action as legislative initiatives such as immigration reforms falter in Congress. And Starbucks turned its shareholders meeting into an episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show. The celebrity talk show host appeared on stage to announce a drink called the Oprah Chai that will be sold at Starbucks cafes starting April 29th. The splashy moves comes as Starbucks looks to tap into tea as a new sales driver. Before welcoming his surprise guest on stage at the annual meeting, Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz noted that he wanted to ignite and transform the tea category. The idea for the collaboration came after Winfrey shared her love of tea with Schultz at a wedding they attended last summer. He sent chai tea to her hotel room and asked if she wanted to create her own tea for the chain. Starbucks said a portion of the proceeds from the sales of the Tivana Oprah Chai will go toward the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy Foundation to help youth educational opportunities.
It's more than a coffee company. It's about nurturing the human spirit. So this felt like something that I really loved, something I really cared about, that would be fun to do, and to be able to align with a company such as Starbucks.
And the fact that you spent so much time really developing the tea, and it was so authentic and so true, and you gave so much of yourself.
I think we got it right, and I want to be able to give it back to organizations that help kids that were like me become the best that they can be.
Everyone's going to get a sample of Oprah Chai.
No, that's not how you say it.
Okay. Sorry.
The way you say it is, you get a chai, you get a chai, you get a chai, you get a chai. Try it, come on.
You get a chai, you get a chai, you get a chai.
Everybody gets a chai!
Hoping that chai tea will come to Lebanon. And on that note, we mark the end of our bulletin, and let me remind you of today's top stories. Prime Minister Tamam Salam is set to win a parliamentary vote of confidence as lawmakers discuss the last day of the policy statement of his cabinet. Clashes intensify between Syrian regime troops and gunmen along the Lebanese-Syrian border with shelling in Akkad. And Russia faces further sanctions from the EU over its annexation of the Crimean Peninsula, and tensions remain high. Those are your Thursday headlines live on Future Television. Join us again tomorrow at 4:20 for what's making headlines here and around the world. Good night.
وبحبر الحوار كتبنا على المعروف